What's up guys, Nor here and welcome to Book of Showtime Chapter 62. As always, if you enjoy these videos, be sure to leave a like and share with your friends, and if you have a topic you'd like me to cover for Book of Showtime, be sure to leave it in the comment section down below, or anywhere you can reach me on social media or the Book of Showtime Discord. Back in Chapter 4, we did a video called Sequel, Remake, or Reboot, where I asked you guys to give me dormant video game IPs, and I spent time going over them before evaluating what comes next. And I figured, why not bring it back? It was a fun topic question, and there's so many dormant IPs out there, it's fun to reminisce. So while I did ask you guys for suggestions, Dead Rising is actually the game that started this debate in my mind of what games needed what. In fact, if you watched Chapter 4, the gameplay background for that video was Dead Rising 2. Speaking of Dead Rising 2, it is one of my all-time favorite games. I played it a ton, I got the guide at Barnes & Nobles, I still have the Steelbook Zombrex case, it is a great game. But after Dead Rising 2 and its expansion, off the record, let's say expansion, Dead Rising went the route many game series have gone that tends to be very hit or miss, which is making the game more accessible and casual friendly. Now, I'm all for games trying to attract more players, but at the end of the day, alienating your base is bad for business. If your core fans aren't fond of your game, the casuals will see this as a red flag, and with Dead Rising 3 being meh and 4 just being atrocious, here we are 8 years later wishing for a new Dead Rising. And saying that Dead Rising 3 is meh is probably just being nice. I loaded up Dead Rising 3 a couple of months ago and man, it is soulless and ugly. There is also an alarming amount of content locked behind co-op, and get this, smart glass. Do you guys remember Xbox Smart Glass? Oh man, I don't even know if you can load up that app. I think you try to load it up and Phil Spencer himself comes to your house and like slaps your phone out of your hand and says, "What are you doing, man?" Do you guys actually remember that? We kind of had like a second screen experience mini boom period in like the early to mid 2010s. Like you had the Wii U, which was based around having that gamepad tablet. Division was gonna have this huge tablet component. Call of Duty had companion apps. Obviously, Dead Rising had one. It's crazy. I thought it was awesome as a teenager, and looking back on it, it's like, I don't know, man. Taking out a smartphone or tablet to enjoy this game to its fullest, yuck. When I played Dead Rising 3 a couple months ago, I got serious notions that the game was nothing more than vaporware to show off the power of the Xbox One, as opposed to a game that Capcom genuinely wanted to push out. But that's for another time. I'm getting off topic. It's a Dead Rising rant. Dead Rising is a classic series that I grew up with. I played it with quite a bit of my friends, and with Capcom kind of on a roll with Monster Hunter, Resident Evil, Devil May Cry, all of their series, seeing Dead Rising get a reboot on that sweet RE engine would be amazing. The story has kind of gotten to, I don't want to say ridiculous because it's Capcom, more like it's gotten away from itself, if that makes sense. So hitting the reset button to bring back the legendary Frank Rest, ideally with his original voice actor, to tackle Willamette in a new light. Guys, can you imagine a Dead Rising game built from the ground up for modern tech on these newer consoles? Whew, it would be beautiful, just navigating the entire mall and underground with no loading screens. Imagine all the zombies you can see on screen. Imagine how fluid the combat can be. Capcom, please. Also, while we're on the subject of Dead Rising revivals, can we get an HD collection of Case Zero and Case West? It's really weird those games are stuck on the 360. They were left behind when the main titles got a port to the Xbox One and PS4. So Venetia had a lot to say, as she usually does. I'm going to put everything she had to say on screen and you can pause and read, but the thing that stuck out was this one. I think a good candidate for this is Zombies Ate My Neighbors. There are so many things you can do with this formula that could become a huge hit. From a faithful remake to an FPS, a third-person over-the-shoulder, a roguelite, or even an asymmetrical multiplayer game a la Dead by Daylight. The cheeky style and unique weapons have the potential to take this franchise in a lot of directions. First off, I don't think anyone should do asymmetrical games anymore, ever again. They all die off. Last year, F-13's getting sunsetted at the end of the year. I don't even know what happened to Video Horror Society, and no one's talked about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That game is almost dead on arrival, despite launching on Game Pass. These games, they just don't work. Dead by Daylight has the weirdest vice grip on the asymmetrical horror genre, and it's so strange because the game is very Christian Slater-ish. It sucks, but it's good though. But it still sucks. Anyway, once upon a time I actually played the original Zombies Ate My Neighbors with Venetia, which here's a picture on screen of Vinny and I drawn as the main characters. Hi Vinny. She's actually that short. She's like 5'8" and I'm like 6'1". I guess you can say when she does something, it's a microtransaction. Okay, sorry, that was terrible. I feel terrible in the booth right now. In fact, let's move on quickly. I'm gonna cut right to the chase and say, I really don't like that joke now in hindsight. I'm gonna cut right to the chase and say Remake, and here's why. The original game itself holds up tremendously well, so it's not like any new installment needs to reinvent the wheel or adapt to modern times like how a Resident Evil or a Silent Hill would. Just take a step back, evaluate what worked and what didn't, add in quality of life features, and bam. Definitely look to Streets of Rage 4 for inspiration. While Streets of Rage 4 was a sequel, it was a sequel to a series that technically ended in 1994, so it has a little reboot and remake vibes to it. What Streets of Rage 4 did so well was lean on nostalgia just enough. You know, locations, attacks, and enemies were similar, but the game was full of enough unique content and its own identity that stands on its own, and I think something along those lines for Zombies Ate My Neighbor would do wonders. Zombies Ate My Neighbors actually got a port to modern machines, so it's not like this is a forgotten series. People know Zombies Ate My Neighbors, so hopefully we get something new. That would be awesome. Finally, my brother Nicholas says, F.E.A.R. Originally, Nick had said Saints Row last game was in 2013, which I wish that was the case. In fact, I wish the last game was in 2011, to be honest. The fall off of Saints Row does need to be evaluated in the future on the channel. Let me know down below if you're interested in that. As for F.E.A.R, I've only played 2 and 3, don't get mad at me. I've only played 2 and 3, and I've been trying to get a copy of the first game for 360 as it's backwards compatible, but it's not available digitally, which that hurt my heart to get so close yet fall so far. It emulates sorta decent on PS3, but it does look very dated and doesn't have subtitles. Look, I know I'm a bit of a diva, yell at me down below. But back to business. My verdict is that F.E.A.R should get a remake. F.E.A.R 2, it holds up extremely well and even has cover mechanics you don't see used in games anymore. It's always jarring when some mechanics don't appear in other games. And while so much of F.E.A.R 3 is polarizing, it is still a serviceable co-op excursion. The gameplay of the latter 2 installments can be adapted to the original as it's remade with newer graphics and a newer engine. The series has been missing for a long time, and with the horror genre in such a great place, I think this is a perfect time for F.E.A.R to make a comeback, especially considering it's been 13 years since F.E.A.R 3 and almost 20 years since the first game. F.E.A.R was praised for its AI at the time of release, but some of the controls and lack of quality of life features for accessibility will make this game feel very dated, so even playing the frame boosted version on Xbox or modded builds on PC can only do F.E.A.R so much justice. While we've seen a spiritual successor in that of Trepang was pretty mundane and didn't have a good story on her characters. Remaking F.E.A.R and introducing it to today's generation of gamers would be a huge success. Also, Alma deserved better. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know down below what direction you think these franchises should go in. Inshallah, I will see you in the next chapter.